A complex bronze gear system predicted cosmic events 2,000 years ago. This is the reality of Bronze Age engineering, a field far more advanced than our history books suggest. We will uncover how ancient engineers built machines centuries ahead of their time, fundamentally changing your understanding of human progress. How did a device like the Antikythera Mechanism, an ancient computer, vanish from history for so long? By the end of this journey, you will see the ancient world not as a primitive past, but as a landscape of breathtaking innovation. What does it truly mean for a civilization to be advanced? 2,000 years before the Common Era, the Eastern Mediterranean was a symphony of human activity. Great ships with sails of woven flax moved between the ports of empires, carrying more than just gold and grain. They transported ideas, a silent commerce in knowledge that would fuel an engineering revolution. This was the Bronze Age, a world far removed from the simple image of early farmers. It was an era defined by a single, transformative material, bronze, an alloy that required the coordinated effort of entire societies. To create it, tin from as far away as Britain had to be traded across continents to meet the copper mined in Cyprus. This was not simple barter, it was a complex international supply chain that connected kingdoms and cultures. Along these trade routes, alongside the raw materials, traveled the blueprints for new tools, the principles of mathematics, and the shared language of the stars used for navigation. This constant exchange created a fertile ground for innovation. For the first time in history, these complex societies produced a new class of person, the specialist artisan. Freed from the daily struggle for food, these individuals could dedicate their lives to a single craft, becoming the world's first professional engineers. They worked in royal workshops, answering to the demands of kings and priests who sought to measure the heavens, build grander monuments, and display their power through technological marvels. So when we uncover a device like the Antikythera Mechanism, we are not looking at a mysterious object that fell from the sky. We are seeing the logical, if breathtaking, product of a vibrant and interconnected world that had been laying the groundwork for such a creation for centuries. This foundation of trade, specialized knowledge, and royal ambition set the stage for a leap in technology that seems to defy the timeline of history itself. That corroded lump of bronze pulled from the seafloor held a secret that would shatter our timeline of invention. For decades, the Antikythera Mechanism sat in a museum, a puzzling artifact too complex to be understood. It was only with the advent of high-powered X-ray technology that researchers could finally see inside the calcified shell. What they found was breathtaking, a miniature bronze universe of interlocking gears. At least 30 finely toothed wheels, some with triangular teeth cut with stunning precision, were all mounted within a wooden frame no larger than a shoebox. This was not a simple calendar or a decorative ornament. It was a machine, a hand-cranked analog computer designed to model the cosmos. By turning a handle on the side, an ancient user could advance the device through time, watching as pointers across several dials displayed the ever-changing positions of the Sun, the Moon, and the 5 known planets. It could predict lunar eclipses and even track the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. The engineering sophistication required to achieve this is staggering. The gears had to account for the irregular speeds of celestial bodies, a problem so complex it was solved using a differential gear, a component once thought to have been invented in the 16th century. Here was a device built around 2,000 years ago that displayed a knowledge of astronomy and mechanics comparable to the intricate clockwork of the 1700s. Its very existence is a silent revolution. It tells us that the conceptual leap to geared computation did not happen in the workshops of medieval Europe, but in the minds of Hellenistic engineers over a millennium earlier. This one machine forces a profound question. If this was what survived by chance at the bottom of the sea, what other brilliant instruments were lost to time? While the Antikythera Mechanism calculated the heavens, another wonder mastered the sea. The Pharos of Alexandria did not merely stand by the shore, it dominated it. This was not a simple tower with a bonfire, but a colossal structure of white marble, soaring to a height that would rival a 40-story skyscraper. For nearly 2,000 years, its flame guided ships into the busiest port of the ancient world. But its true genius lay hidden within its formidable walls. Imagine the logistical miracle of its construction, hauling massive stone blocks, some weighing over 70 tons, onto a foundation submerged in the harbor waters. The engineers designed an internal spiral ramp that allowed workers to carry fuel, likely a special refined resin, all the way to the summit where the fire burned day and night. The most debated feature was its crowning glory, a massive polished bronze mirror. Ancient accounts claim this device could reflect the beacon's light for over 30 miles, a distance that seems impossible for a simple parabolic mirror. This has led to fascinating theories. Could it have been an early steam-powered mechanism, using heated water to create a more intense, focused beam? Was it a form of primitive telescope, allowing watchmen to spot ships far beyond the horizon? We may never know the exact technology, but the sheer ambition is clear. The Pharos was a machine as much as it was a building, a testament to engineering that integrated architecture, optics, and possibly even mechanics on a scale that would not be seen again until the Industrial Revolution. It stood as a daily reminder to every sailor and citizen that human ingenuity could literally pierce the darkness and tame the chaotic sea. If the Antikythera Mechanism was a computer for the cosmos, the Pharos of Alexandria was a physical declaration of power over the earthly realm. Deep within the great library of Alexandria, a different kind of magic was being engineered. While the Pharos Tower commanded the sea, the workshop of Heron of Alexandria mastered the intimate marvels of automation. In the 1st century of the Common Era, Heron's creations must have seemed like miracles bestowed by the gods. Temple doors would swing open as if by an unseen hand, triggered by fire heating air to displace water, which then pulled on ropes and turned axles. Statues would pour wine and water for astonished worshippers. His most famous automaton was an entire puppet theater, a miniature stage that presented a complete tragic play. Through a complex, programmable system of ropes wound around rotating cylinders, counterweights, and precisely timed gears, wooden figures sailed ships, struck each other with clubs, and then retreated, all without a single human pulling a string after the initial setup. This was not just a sophisticated toy, it was the world's first programmable machine, a mechanical computer for storytelling. Yet Heron's most revolutionary invention was one that produced pure power. The Eolipile was a simple but profound device, a sphere mounted on a boiler. As the water boiled, steam shot out from 2 bent nozzles, causing the sphere to spin rapidly on its axis. This was a working steam turbine, a clear demonstration of jet propulsion and the conversion of thermal energy into motion. Heron understood the principles of action and reaction over 1,700 years before they were formally defined. He had in his hands the fundamental component for an industrial revolution, and yet it remained a fascinating curiosity, a temple wonder used to amaze visitors. The world had a steam engine, but it was used to spin a ball, not to power pumps, ships, or factories. This is the central, haunting mystery of Heron's genius. His work represented the absolute peak of a long engineering tradition, yet its most transformative potential was left completely unexplored. Why would a society that could automate a play and harness steam not see the world-changing applications of its own technology? The answer lies not in a lack of intelligence, but in the very structure of the ancient world itself. The brilliance of Heron's Automata and the cosmic clockwork of Antikythera all rested on a single, fundamental achievement. To translate such grand ideas into physical reality required a mastery over material itself. The Bronze Age was not merely named for a substance, but for a revolution in how that substance was manipulated. Creating a complex gear train was not just a feat of design, it was a triumph of metallurgy. Artisans did not simply melt and pour bronze. They perfected a method known as lost wax casting, a process of breathtaking ingenuity. A craftsman would first sculpt a perfect model of a gear, perhaps from beeswax, capturing every minute tooth and detail. This wax model would be encased in clay, forming a mold. When the mold was fired in a kiln, the wax would melt and drain away, leaving behind a perfect hollow cavity. Molten bronze was then poured into this void, and once it cooled, the clay mold was broken apart to reveal a bronze component of stunning complexity, ready for its final finishing. This was how intricate parts were born, but casting was only the beginning. To achieve the smooth, friction-free motion required for a machine like the Antikythera Mechanism, each gear needed to be refined with extraordinary precision. These ancient engineers used bow drills for boring precise holes, lathes for turning axles to perfect cylinders, and fine chisels of hardened bronze or even early iron to trim and adjust. When we examine the finest Bronze Age artifacts, we see evidence of this obsession with accuracy. The tolerances on some components are so tight that they strongly suggest the use of advanced measuring tools. Imagine a craftsman using a primitive but effective caliper, comparing the thickness of a gear tooth to a standardized rule, ensuring every part in the system would mesh perfectly. The production of thin, yet incredibly durable, sheet metal for gear wheels, or the creation of perfectly spherical bearings to reduce friction in a reduction gear, speaks to a deep, empirical understanding of material science. They knew through practice how to alloy their metals, how to work harden them, and how to anneal them for specific purposes. This was not magic. It was the accumulated, hands-on knowledge of generations of specialized artisans. Every whirring gear in the Antikythera Mechanism, every spinning sphere in Heron's workshop, was ultimately a product of this foundational mastery over metal. Without this silent revolution in the workshop, the great machines that seem so impossibly advanced would have remained nothing more than dreams on a scrap of papyrus. The silent turning of each bronze gear was an act of pure mathematics. To achieve its purpose, the Antikythera Mechanism had to embody celestial rhythms in tangible metal, and this required a deep understanding of geometry passed down through generations. This knowledge was not born in a vacuum. It was the culmination of centuries of observation, a legacy inherited from Babylonian temple astronomers who meticulously recorded the paths of planets on clay tablets, and from Egyptian surveyors who developed geometry to restore field boundaries after the Nile's annual floods. Greek thinkers then refined these practical systems into abstract theories, creating a powerful intellectual toolkit. The engineers who designed the mechanism were masters of this applied science. They knew, for example, that 19 solar years almost exactly equals 235 lunar cycles. This period, known as the Metonic cycle, was physically built into the machine's gear train. One specific gear with 254 precisely cut teeth would engage with a smaller gear of just 19 teeth. This seemingly simple ratio of 254 to 19 is a mathematical solution to a complex astronomical problem, accurately modeling the subtle variations in the moon's motion across the sky. Another set of gears encoded the Saros cycle, a period of approximately 18 years after which the Sun, Earth, and Moon returned to nearly the same relative positions, allowing for the prediction of eclipses. This was not mere arithmetic, it was a spatial, three-dimensional form of calculation. The engineers had to visualize how circular motions could be translated, reversed, and combined through a series of interlocking wheels. They were building a physical model of the universe, a clockwork cosmos where the abstract theories of philosophers became a visible, predictable reality. The machine was a bridge between the world of ideas and the world of things. Its genius lies in this profound fusion, a level of synergy between abstract science and hands-on engineering that would not be seen again for over a millennium. That profound fusion of science and engineering could not have flourished in a vacuum. It required immense resources, a stable environment, and a powerful reason to exist. The spark that ignited these technological leaps often came from the very pinnacle of society, from kings and priests who saw in engineering a tool to manifest their authority. Why would a civilization pour vast fortunes into a cosmic calculator or a towering lighthouse? The answer lies in the ambitions of its rulers. The Pharos of Alexandria was not merely a navigational aid, it was a colossal advertisement. For the Ptolemaic dynasty ruling Egypt, its brilliant flame was a statement of unparalleled wealth and maritime control, a promise of safe passage that drew the world's trade and tribute directly into their harbor. It was power made visible across the sea. Similarly, within the sacred spaces of temples, engineering served a different master, faith. The automata designed by Heron, those self-moving statues and temple doors that opened as if by magic, were not built as simple amusements. They were carefully crafted miracles intended to inspire awe and reinforce the belief in divine presence. When a statue poured wine for a worshipper, it was a tangible sign of a god's favor, a technological sleight of hand that strengthened the hold of the priesthood and, by extension, the ruler who stood with them. This system of royal and religious patronage created a unique sanctuary for innovation. Engineers and mathematicians were given a protected space to experiment, funded by the treasury, and freed from the immediate, grinding pressure of the marketplace. They were not tasked with building a more efficient plow or a cheaper pot. Their challenge was far more ambitious: to solve problems of prestige and ritual. How do we build a machine that predicts the gods' movements in the sky? How do we create an unforgettable spectacle for a royal festival? These goals, while not utilitarian in the common sense, demanded radical solutions and allowed for speculative, long-term thinking. The pursuit of wonder, it turns out, can be a more powerful catalyst for advancement than the pursuit of profit alone. This unique intersection of absolute power, deep faith, and brilliant intellect provided the perfect conditions for technologies to leap centuries ahead of their time, all in the service of glorifying both God and King. Within the great library's vast halls, the intellectual currents of the ancient world converged. This was not merely a building for storing scrolls, it was the very heart of a global knowledge network. Imagine the smell of papyrus and cedar oil as scholars from Greece, Egypt, and Mesopotamia worked side by side in the attached Mauseon. Here, the theoretical geometry of Euclid met the practical hydraulics of Ctesibius, and the astronomical observations of Babylon were cross-referenced with the mechanical principles of Archimedes. A young Heron of Alexandria would have had access to centuries of accumulated wisdom, from Mesopotamian star charts to Egyptian treatises on lever systems. The Antikythera Mechanism itself may not have been built there, but the complex understanding it represents, the synergy of gear trains and celestial cycles, was exactly the kind of knowledge that thrived in this unique environment. The library was a living, breathing ecosystem of innovation. The designs for automata, steam engines, and cosmic calculators were meticulously recorded on thousands of scrolls. These texts contained detailed diagrams, mathematical proofs, and step-by-step instructions for constructing machines that could mimic life and model the heavens. And then they were gone. The slow, agonizing destruction of the library through a series of fires was not just the loss of a building, it was a catastrophic severing of the human technological lineage. When those scrolls turned to ash, entire fields of advanced engineering were effectively erased. The intricate knowledge of gear ratios, the principles of steam power, the blueprints for complex automata, all vanished from the collective memory of the Western world. This single event helps explain the profound, thousand-year silence that followed. The thread of progress was broken. The work of geniuses had to be painstakingly rediscovered centuries later, not built upon by the next generation. The disappearance of this central repository of knowledge stands as one of history's greatest turning points, a stark reminder of how fragile even the most advanced civilization can be. The Roman fleet must have seemed an invincible force as it approached the walls of Syracuse, yet the city possessed a weapon more formidable than any legion, the mind of Archimedes. According to the historian Plutarch, the Roman soldiers faced not just defenders, but engineering marvels that defied belief. Giant cranes, powered by complex systems of levers and pulleys, swung out over the harbor walls. These machines, known as claw cranes, would hook onto the prows of invading ships. With a terrifying mechanical advantage, they would lift the entire vessel from the water, swing it through the air, and dash it against the rocks below. Other accounts speak of arrays of polished bronze shields, angled to focus the Sicilian sun into a single, searing point of light that set the wooden warships ablaze from a distance. While the historical accuracy of these burning mirrors is debated, the stories themselves reveal a profound truth. Archimedes was not merely a theoretical mathematician pondering circles in the sand. He was a master of applied physics, turning the abstract principles of leverage and optics into devastatingly practical instruments of war. His famous proclamation, "Give me a place to stand and I shall move the earth," was not an empty boast. It was a statement of his fundamental understanding that knowledge, properly engineered, could amplify human power to a godlike scale. This was the same genius that gave the world the Archimedes screw, a brilliantly simple device of a helix inside a cylinder that could lift water with effortless efficiency. A design so perfect it remains in use for irrigation and drainage to this very day. For 2 years, his inventions held the full might of Rome at bay, turning a single city into an unconquerable fortress. When the Romans finally broke through, it was through betrayal, not through overcoming his defenses. The Roman commander, Marcellus, had such respect for the engineer who had humbled his army that he gave explicit orders for Archimedes to be taken alive and treated with honor. The story of his death is a poignant tragedy. A Roman soldier, finding an old man engrossed in a geometric diagram drawn in the dust, ordered him to come along. Archimedes, so absorbed in his work, reportedly said, "Do not disturb my circles." The soldier, ignorant of the identity of the man before him, killed him on the spot. That single, senseless act did more than end the life of one man. It extinguished a beacon of practical genius. Archimedes represented the pinnacle of a tradition that fused pure science with hands-on engineering. His personal manuscripts on mechanics, containing designs and theories that were far ahead of their time, were lost in the chaos of the siege. Their disappearance is one of history's great what-if moments. What further revolutions in technology died with him in the dust of Syracuse? His death marks a symbolic close to an age where innovation was not just theoretical, but fearlessly, powerfully applied. The death of Archimedes on a dusty street was more than a personal tragedy. It was a symptom of a deeper technological paradox that haunted the ancient world. These brilliant machines were not simply forgotten, they were never widely adopted in the first place. This puzzle leads us to a crucial concept, the paradox of appropriate technology. A civilization will only consistently develop and sustain the inventions that solve its most pressing problems. The ancient Mediterranean, for all its intellectual firepower, operated on a foundation of abundant human labor and readily available energy from wind, water, and animals. There was no economic incentive to replace the muscle of thousands of workers with a costly and complex steam engine. Why invest a fortune in a metal contraption to pump water when a team of slaves could do the same job with simple buckets? Heron's eolipile, that spinning steam sphere, was a perfect demonstration of a principle without a practical application. It was a temple wonder, a philosophical toy that answered a question no one in power was asking. The Antikythera Mechanism faced a similar fate. It was a precision marvel, but it was built for an audience of one, perhaps a king or a high priest who used its celestial predictions to legitimize their rule. It was not a device designed to help sailors navigate or farmers plant crops. It was a specialized scientific instrument, a status symbol in a world that had no concept of mass production. These inventions were solutions in search of a problem that their society did not yet have. They were brilliant answers to questions that the broader economy was not asking. This is why technological progress can seem to lurch forward and then stall for centuries. An invention must be more than just possible. It must also be necessary, and it must fit seamlessly into the existing economic and social fabric to truly transform the world. A steam engine is just a curiosity until there is a pressing need to drain flooded mines and a cost of labor that makes building it worthwhile. The ancient engineers had surpassed the necessary knowledge. What their world lacked was the compelling reason to apply it on a scale that would change everything. The relentless sea demanded more than courage from ancient sailors. It required engineering genius. Every voyage across the open Mediterranean was a high-stakes gamble against storms, rocky coasts, and the profound disorientation of a horizon without landmarks. The economic survival of entire empires depended on the safe passage of ships laden with grain, olive oil, and precious metals. This constant, tangible pressure to navigate accurately created an insatiable market for better technology. While the Antikythera Mechanism was likely a prestigious scientific instrument, the principles it used were born from the sea. Its ability to track the sun, moon, and planets with precision would have been the ultimate navigational aid, a portable almanac of the heavens that could help a captain verify his latitude or anticipate a season's weather patterns. The very stars it calculated were the same ones sailors used to guide their wooden hulls through the night. But the innovations were not confined to the captain's quarters. The ships themselves were marvels of Bronze Age engineering, built not from simple hollowed logs but from complex, shell-first hulls of interlocking planks, sealed with pitch and reinforced with internal framing. These vessels were designed to carry immense cargoes across hundreds of miles of open water, their sail configurations carefully engineered to catch the prevailing winds. And once these heavily laden ships reached their destination, the challenge shifted from movement to manipulation. The crowded harbors of ports like Alexandria or Piraeus became open-air laboratories for mechanical advantage. The daily, back-breaking work of unloading amphorae of wine and sacks of grain created a powerful incentive to build better machines. This is where the simple rope and pulley evolved into complex crane systems, using multiple wheels and counterweights to lift loads that would have required dozens of men. It was this very technology of commerce, perfected in the hustle of the dockyard, that a mind like Archimedes would later weaponize to defend Syracuse, turning the tools of trade into engines of war. From the shipwright's adze to the crane operator's winch, the relentless practical demands of seafaring provided a continuous stream of real-world problems, each one pushing ancient engineers to devise solutions that expanded the very limits of the possible. These fragile networks of knowledge functioned like a global nervous system, carrying the lifeblood of innovation from one brilliant mind to another. A merchant caravan plodding across the deserts of Central Asia did more than transport bundles of silk and jars of spice. In the saddlebags of its riders, tucked between rolls of precious cloth, were papyrus scrolls and clay tablets inscribed with the astronomical observations of Babylonian priests. These detailed records of planetary motions, accumulated over centuries, would eventually find their way to the scholars of Greece, providing the raw data that would one day be encoded into the bronze gears of the Antikythera Mechanism. The Mediterranean Sea itself was a liquid highway for ideas. A Greek engineer seeking a more generous patron might travel from Syracuse to the court of Alexandria, carrying with him not just his tools, but the entire mechanical philosophy of his teacher. In the bustling port of Rhodes, a shipwright might perfect a new method for casting complex bronze components, a technique that would then be shared over wine with a visiting artisan from Pergamon, who would in turn carry that knowledge home to his own workshop. This was a world of constant, informal exchange. The blueprint for a revolutionary water pump or a new type of crane was not copyrighted or guarded as a state secret. It was a piece of intellectual cargo, as valuable as any shipment of ivory or incense moving along the same routes. This cross-pollination was the engine of progress. A concept born in the mind of a Babylonian astronomer could be refined by a Greek mathematician and then physically built by an Egyptian metalworker, each specialist adding a layer of understanding until a truly revolutionary machine was born. But this system had a profound weakness. The entire edifice of advanced engineering rested on the stability of empires and the safety of trade routes. A single war, a shift in political power, or the rise of a new tariff could instantly snap these delicate threads of communication. The knowledge required to build a cosmic calculator was not stored in one great library alone. It was a distributed network, a fragile web of shared expertise stretching from Mesopotamia to the Italian peninsula. If one node in that network failed, if a center of learning was sacked or a trade route closed by conflict, a vital piece of the puzzle could vanish for centuries. The genius of the ancient world was not just in its inventions, but in the interconnected system that made them possible. And that system was terrifyingly easy to break. Rome's legions built an empire of stone and order, but their genius lay in standardization, not cosmic calculators. The Roman world was a masterpiece of practical engineering, a network of roads, aqueducts, and fortifications designed to move armies and control territories. While the Hellenistic engineers had pursued intricate machines to understand the heavens, Roman engineers focused on earthly dominion. This shift in imperial priorities had a profound, if unintended, consequence. The specialized workshops and royal patrons who once funded long-term, speculative research into devices like the Antikythera Mechanism found themselves in a new world with different demands. A master gear maker whose family had perfected the casting of complex bronze wheels for generations might now find his skills redirected. Instead of crafting delicate mechanisms to track planets, he would be commissioned to produce standardized components for water mills or sturdy gears for massive siege catapults. The work was still engineering, but it was engineering of a different kind, aimed at immediate, large-scale utility rather than philosophical wonder or scientific discovery. This was not a failure of Roman intellect, but a reallocation of resources. The Roman state valued what could be built to last for centuries and serve its vast infrastructure, not what could be built to model the cosmos for a single scholar. As the centralized power of Rome itself began to waver in its later centuries, the situation grew more dire. The political fragmentation and constant warfare that characterized the late Roman era shattered the very foundations that had supported advanced engineering. The great trade routes that carried tin and copper became insecure, disrupting the supply chains for high-quality bronze. The peaceful, wealthy cities that housed royal libraries and workshops were sacked or fell into economic decline. The intricate knowledge of gear ratios lost wax casting for minute components, and the complex mathematics behind planetary motion were no longer being taught to new apprentices. There was simply no market for such esoteric skills. An engineer who knew how to calculate the metonic cycle was of less value to a local warlord than one who could quickly construct a battering ram. The specialized artisan, that cornerstone of Bronze Age innovation, became an economic luxury the world could no longer afford. The machines did not vanish in a single cataclysm. They faded away over generations as the masters died without passing on their most advanced secrets, and the very reason for building such wonders was forgotten. The intricate gearwork of the ancient world did not break. It was simply never repaired, its purpose lost to the pressing, immediate needs of a darker age. A single rust-caked gear from a different shipwreck tells its own silent story. This was not found near Antikythera, but recovered from the deep elsewhere in the Mediterranean. It is small, exquisitely cast from bronze, and its teeth are cut with the same unmistakable precision. It is a powerful clue that the great mechanism was not a solitary miracle, but part of a wider, thriving culture of mechanics. Archaeological digs across the ancient world have unearthed these tantalizing fragments. In Switzerland, a Roman-era mechanical calendar was discovered, a portable device of bronze and silver with multiple dials. It is far simpler than the Antikythera mechanism, functioning more as a handy almanac for tracking days and festivals, yet it operates on the same fundamental principle of geared computation. Its existence in a provincial Roman town proves that these ideas had spread far beyond the great scholarly centers, becoming tools for daily life and administration. Beyond the gears themselves, the evidence is etched into the artifacts. Modern researchers use microscopes to analyze the faintest tool marks left on ancient metal. The precise scoring from a bow drill, the parallel striations from a turning lathe, the microscopic wear patterns from repeated use, all these traces allow us to reverse engineer the workshop practices of 2,000 years ago. We can almost see the artisan at his bench, refining a component to perfection. Sometimes the most compelling evidence is not an object but a word. Epigraphic evidence, the formal inscriptions carved into stone monuments and temple walls, occasionally holds a fleeting reference to a magnificent machine that has long since turned to dust. An inscription might proudly describe a colossal crane that lifted obelisks, or a complex water-powered organ that played in a theater. These are the ghosts of engineering, machines we know existed only because someone carved their memory in stone for eternity. Each of these fragments, the lone gear, the provincial calendar, the tool mark, the passing inscription, is a single piece of a vast and complex puzzle. They collectively paint a picture of a technological landscape that was far richer and more widespread than we ever imagined. The famous surviving wonders are not the whole story. They are merely the tip of a massive, submerged iceberg of innovation, most of which was lost to time. leaving behind only these scattered whispers of a world that was far more mechanically minded than our history books led us to believe. These corroded lumps of metal hold their secrets tightly. Unlocking them requires a form of technological archaeology, a painstaking process of reverse engineering that uses 21st century tools to interrogate 2,000-year-old artifacts. The first challenge is simply seeing what is inside. A device like the Antikythera Mechanism was found as a single, solidified mass of bronze and corrosion, fused together by centuries under the sea. You cannot simply pry it apart without destroying the very evidence you seek. The key breakthrough came with three-dimensional X-ray tomography. This advanced scanning technique works like a medical CT scanner, but with far greater resolution. It allows researchers to virtually slice through the calcified block, layer by microscopic layer, mapping the precise positions and shapes of the internal gears without ever touching them with a tool. It digitally excavates the machine, but seeing the gears is only the beginning. The next step is to read the faint whispers left on the surface. High-resolution polynomial texture mapping is a photographic technique that uses multiple light sources from different angles to highlight surface variations invisible to the naked eye. It can reveal the ghost of an inscription, a single Greek letter carved next to a dial, or a tiny alignment mark scratched by the original craftsman. These clues are like finding the instruction manual, one character at a time. Once all this data is gathered, the real detective work begins. Engineers and programmers build a precise digital model of the entire mechanism. This virtual reconstruction is a playground for testing theories. They can simulate the machine's operation, testing thousands of possible gear combinations and functions against the physical evidence. Does this gear train produce the known metonic cycle? Does that pointer align with the historical record of a specific eclipse? It is a process of elimination, a technological dialogue across millennia where modern software asks questions of ancient bronze and the gears slowly begin to turn again in a virtual space. This is not a solitary pursuit. It demands a rare collaboration between archaeologists who understand the historical context, philologists who can decipher the faded texts, mechanical engineers who comprehend gear dynamics, and computer scientists who build the simulations. Together, they form a multidisciplinary team piecing together a puzzle where most of the pieces are missing. This scientific detective work is how a lump of corroded metal is transformed back into a cosmic calculator. It is how we are slowly, meticulously rebuilding the lost library of ancient engineering, one digital gear at a time. That single, rust-caked gear is a profound challenge to our entire worldview. We are taught to see history as a simple upward march, a story of steady improvement where each generation stands on the shoulders of the last, inevitably reaching greater heights. The existence of the Antikythera Mechanism shatters this comforting illusion. History is not a smooth, upward slope. It is a landscape of jagged peaks and deep valleys, of brilliant flowering and devastating collapse. The engineering mastery of the Hellenistic world represents a towering peak, a high plateau of mechanical sophistication that European technology would not reach again until the sophisticated clockwork of the Renaissance, over 1,000 years later. This single fact forces a deep and necessary humility upon us. It proves that knowledge is not a permanent possession. Civilizations can and do forget. The intricate understanding of gear trains, the mathematical models of the cosmos, the principles of steam power, these were not slowly improved upon. They were lost completely and utterly for centuries. The timeline of human invention is not a straight line. It is a complex, tangled web filled with dead ends, parallel discoveries, and painful rediscoveries. Think of the Aeolipile, a working steam engine that became a temple curiosity. its world-changing potential invisible to the society that created it. That is a dead end. Think of the precise geometry required for the Antikythera mechanism, which had to be painstakingly reinvented by later mathematicians. That is a rediscovery. This cyclical nature of progress transforms the story of these ancient engineers. It moves from a mere historical curiosity to a tale of profound caution. We live in a civilization utterly dependent on technology, from the global internet to complex supply chains. We assume this foundation is permanent. But the silent, corroded gears from a 2,000-year-old shipwreck ask us a haunting question. If a civilization as brilliant and interconnected as the Hellenistic world could lose such foundational knowledge, what makes us so certain that our own technological achievements are immune to the same fate? Across the vast expanse of Asia, a parallel revolution in engineering was unfolding entirely on its own terms. The story of advanced machinery is not a single thread running from Greece to Rome, but a tapestry woven from many independent centers of genius. In the courts of China's Han Dynasty, the scholar Zhang Heng presented the emperor with a device that seemed to possess a supernatural sense. It was a bronze vessel adorned with 8 dragons, each holding a bronze ball in its mouth. Below them, 8 bronze toads sat with their mouths open. When an earthquake occurred hundreds of miles away, a mechanism hidden inside the vessel was triggered. A pendulum would swing, tripping a lever that caused just one dragon to release its ball, which would clatter into the waiting toad's mouth. This seismoscope did not just detect shaking, it pointed to the direction of the quake's epicenter. The internal mechanism remains a subject of debate, but its principle was sound, a mechanical marvel of its age that combined art, science, and practical statecraft to warn the empire of distant tremors. Centuries later, during the Song dynasty, the engineer Su Song achieved something even more breathtaking. He constructed a clock tower over 30 feet tall, a monument of synchronized motion powered not by a hand crank, but by the constant flow of water. A massive water wheel, acting as the tower's heart, turned with the power of a waterfall. The true stroke of genius was an early escapement mechanism, a device that regulated the wheel's power, converting its relentless force into a series of tiny, precise ticks. This regulated motion drove an armillary sphere to track the stars and a celestial globe that mapped the heavens, while automated puppets emerged from doors to ring bells and announce the hours. Su Song's tower was a city's public timekeeper, an astronomical observatory, and a theatrical performance all in one. It was a Chinese Antikythera, born from a different culture 1,000 years later, yet solving the same fundamental problem of modeling the cosmos with gears and levers. These parallel paths in the East and West shatter the illusion of a single, Eurocentric timeline of progress. They reveal a deeper truth. Whenever human societies achieved a certain level of stability, wealth, and intellectual curiosity, the drive to build complex machines emerged not as a fluke, but as a recurring pattern of civilization itself. A priest lights a sacred flame on a simple altar. The air grows warm, and with a soft hiss, unseen water begins to flow. Then, the impossible happens. The massive bronze doors of the temple groan and slowly swing inward, as if pushed by an invisible giant. For the worshipper standing outside, this was not engineering. It was a miracle, a direct manifestation of divine will answering the call of a holy man. This psychological impact was the entire point. These machines were designed to generate awe, a feeling so powerful it could cement the authority of a ruler or a priesthood for a lifetime. When a king possessed a device that could predict an eclipse, he was not just a man with a clever tool. He was a mediator with the gods, someone who could announce when the moon would bleed and then, right on schedule, watch his prediction come true. His power was not just political, it was cosmic. This blurring of the line between human craft and divine power was a deliberate strategy of social control. The incredible resources poured into a cosmic calculator or a theater of automata were justified not by practical need, but by their ability to inspire belief and reinforce the established order. The engineer became a creator of controlled miracles, his genius directed toward crafting experiences that affirmed the God-given right of his patron to rule. This pursuit of wonder, this need to manifest the divine in bronze and steam, was a potent and often overlooked fuel for innovation. It pushed the boundaries of what was mechanically possible because the goal was not efficiency, but pure, jaw-dropping spectacle. A society that wanted its gods to pour wine had to first invent the complex plumbing and pneumatic systems to make it happen. The drive to inspire sacred terror in the hearts of the people led directly to technologies that would not be seen again for over a millennium, all in the service of a single, powerful illusion. The staggering cost of a single gear for the Antikythera mechanism could have fed a family for a year. This was not just advanced engineering, it was an economic phenomenon of concentrated wealth. To commission such a device, a patron needed control over vast resources, from the mines that produced the copper and tin to the workshop of a master artisan who had spent a lifetime perfecting his craft. That artisan did not work quickly. He worked meticulously, perhaps spending months on the design and casting of a single critical gear train, knowing that one flaw would render the entire machine useless. This was the antithesis of mass production. Every component was bespoke, hand-fitted and finished, making each mechanism a unique masterpiece. The entire economic model was built on elite patronage, where a king or a high priest would fund a project not for its utility, but for its value as a symbol of their power and enlightenment. There was no broader market for cosmic calculators. No shop in a bustling Athenian agora sold geared devices to predict eclipses for the average merchant. This lack of a commercial ecosystem meant there was no infrastructure for repair, no guild of technicians trained to maintain these complex machines, and no economic incentive for anyone other than the ultra-wealthy to invest in their development. Why would a workshop perfect a cheaper version when there were no customers to buy it? This economic reality intersected with a social one, the pervasive availability of slave labor. When a task needed doing, whether hauling stone for a pyramid or pumping water from a mine, the simplest and most cost-effective solution was almost always to apply more human muscle. The economic pressure to invent labor-saving machinery was virtually non-existent. A steam engine to automate a task was an expensive, complex curiosity. A team of enslaved people was a predictable, renewable, and cheap resource. This combination of factors, a patronage-based model for elite wonders, and an economy saturated with cheap labor, created a powerful ceiling for technological diffusion. An invention could be conceptually brilliant, a leap of genius that foreshadowed the future, but without a cost-effective way to produce it, implement it, and integrate it into the daily life of society, its impact was destined to remain incredibly narrow. It was a flash of lightning, illuminating the technological landscape for a breathtaking moment, but leaving no lasting infrastructure to carry the light forward. The real mystery is not why these machines were built, but why the world that built them failed to build 1,000 more. The true library of ancient engineering was not built of stone, but of parchment and ink. While the great library of Alexandria crumbled, its most vital knowledge escaped in the form of manuscripts, smuggled by scholars or traded along the Silk Road. These precious texts found sanctuary in the bustling intellectual centers of the Abbasid Caliphate and the quiet scriptoria of medieval monasteries. Arabic scholars, driven by a thirst for all branches of knowledge, meticulously translated and preserved the works of Greek engineers like Heron of Alexandria. His treatises, Pneumatica and Automata, were not just saved, they were studied, annotated, and expanded upon. Within their pages, a whole world of forgotten technology comes to life. They describe in precise detail how to build machines that run on steam, how to construct complex water organs that play by themselves, and even how to create coin-operated dispensers that would release a measured amount of holy water for a worshipper. These are not vague ideas, but step-by-step instructions, complete with diagrams and explanations of the physical principles at work. We may not have the physical coin slot from a 2,000-year-old machine, but we have its blueprint. These manuscripts are the ghostly echo of a much larger, vibrant technological culture. They confirm that the conceptual leap represented by the Antikythera Mechanism was not a singular, inexplicable event. It was part of a documented and systematically taught tradition of mechanical engineering. The existence of these texts proves that the knowledge to build such devices was not locked in one workshop, but was being communicated, refined, and passed down through generations. This survival of ideas, however fragmented, created a crucial bridge across the centuries. When these Arabic translations were later rendered into Latin by scholars in places like Toledo, Spain, they flowed back into a Europe that was slowly reawakening. They landed on the desks of Renaissance thinkers, providing the very seed crystals for a new age of invention. The intricate automata described by Heron directly inspired the mechanical angels and roaring lions in the workshops of Leonardo da Vinci. The principles of pneumatics and hydraulics laid out in these ancient pages gave engineers the conceptual tools to build the magnificent fountains and clockwork marvels of the Baroque era. The legacy of these Bronze Age engineers did not completely vanish. It went underground, traveling along a fragile paper trail that kept the embers of mechanical genius alive, waiting for a new world that was finally ready to fan them into a flame. 1,000-year silence was broken not by a new invention, but by the rediscovery of an old one. In the quiet scriptoria of medieval monasteries and the bustling translation houses of Islamic Spain, a resurrection was taking place. Scholars meticulously copied and translated long-lost Greek and Roman manuscripts, works by Archimedes and Heron of Alexandria that had been preserved and expanded upon by Arabic thinkers. These were not just philosophical musings, they were practical engineering manuals filled with diagrams for steam engines, water pumps, and complex automata. When these texts finally reached the workshops of Renaissance Italy, they fell into the hands of a new kind of artist-engineer, embodied by the insatiable curiosity of Leonardo da Vinci. His notebooks are a breathtaking echo across the centuries. He sketched intricate gear trains for calculating machines, designs for robotic knights that could sit up and wave their arms, and flying machines inspired by the mechanics of nature. While he almost certainly never saw the Antikythera Mechanism, he was thinking in the same mechanical language, trying to solve the same kinds of problems that had consumed Heron over a millennium before. This was not a coincidence. The Renaissance was, in many ways, a deliberate project to reach back through time and reclaim the lost genius of the ancient world. It was a conscious reconnection with a severed technological lineage. The gears that had stopped turning in the workshops of Alexandria were slowly and painstakingly beginning to turn again in the mind of Leonardo. This re-engagement with ancient mechanical principles did more than just inspire fascinating toys. It provided the essential intellectual spark for the scientific revolution. When thinkers like Galileo studied the physics of pendulums and levers, they were building upon a foundation that Archimedes had laid. the ancient world had indeed provided the blueprint. But a blueprint is useless without the right conditions to build from it. The Renaissance and the eras that followed created a new social and economic context, one with growing cities, emerging capitalist markets, and a pressing need for machines that could do more than amaze kings. They needed machines that could power looms, pump water from deep mines, and propel ships across oceans. The ideas had always been there, waiting in those ancient manuscripts. It took a world that was finally ready to ask the right questions and, more importantly, to build the answers on a mass scale. The journey was long and fractured, but the thread of genius, though stretched to its limit, was never truly broken. That same drive to build a physical model of the universe now fuels our exploration of other worlds. The painstaking work of decoding the Antikythera Mechanism has done more than just reveal an ancient wonder. It has inspired a new generation of engineers to think differently. In an age dominated by digital chips, some of the most challenging environments demand a return to analog principles. Space probes sent to distant, radiation-heavy planets cannot rely on fragile digital processors that can be fried by a cosmic ray. The solution, ironically, echoes the past: robust, single-purpose analog computers built with gears and levers, designed to perform a critical function with absolute reliability and minimal power. These modern cosmic calculators are the direct philosophical descendants of that 2,000-year-old device, proving that mechanical computation is far from obsolete. The lineage of Heron of Alexandria is equally alive today. His automata, those temple wonders powered by steam and hydraulics, are now seen as the conceptual ancestors of modern robotics. The fundamental challenge he faced, how to make an inanimate object perform a complex, pre-programmed sequence of actions, is the same challenge tackled by engineers programming industrial robot arms on a factory floor. Heron was asking the very first question of robotics: how do we give physical form to a set of instructions? This historical connection is not merely theoretical. To truly understand how these ancient machines were built, a growing field called experimental archaeology has emerged, where teams of engineers and craftsmen commit to building full-scale, working replicas using only the tools, materials, and knowledge available at the time. The process is brutally enlightening. Attempting to cast a perfectly meshing bronze gear using a clay mold and a charcoal furnace forces a modern engineer to abandon all assumptions. It teaches profound lessons in problem solving under extreme constraints, a skill that is invaluable when designing for resource-limited environments like a lunar base or a deep-sea probe. The sophisticated software used to virtually reconstruct these devices has also been pushed to its limits, leading to advancements in non-destructive scanning and three-dimensional modeling that are now used in everything from medical imaging to preserving other fragile artifacts. The ancient engineers, in their quest to model the cosmos and automate sacred rituals, were unknowingly laying the groundwork for timeless principles of information processing, control systems, and mechanical design. Their legacy is not locked in a museum case, but is actively being woven into the fabric of our own technological future. A gleaming bronze gear could calculate the harmony of the heavens, yet that same knowledge could also shatter a wooden warship. The engineers who built these marvels answered to kings and high priests, placing immense power into the hands of a very few. This concentration of technology was never neutral. It was a tool of statecraft, a means to legitimize rule and command obedience. When a ruler possessed the only machine that could predict an eclipse, he was not just an astronomer, he was a mediator with the gods. His ability to announce the precise moment the moon would darken was not a public service. It was a powerful demonstration of his unique access to cosmic order. This knowledge created a profound divide between the enlightened elite and the governed masses. Were these devices used to enlighten society or to control it? The answer is likely both, but the balance of power was overwhelmingly one-sided. The same geometrical principles that modeled planetary orbits could calculate the trajectory of a massive stone hurled from a catapult. Archimedes, the genius of Syracuse, became a living weapon. His claw cranes and burning mirrors were not built for wonder, but for wholesale destruction, turning the science of leverage and optics into instruments of war that held a Roman fleet at bay for 2 years. This is the ancient world's starkest example of the dual-use dilemma, a challenge that echoes in our own time with artificial intelligence and genetic engineering. A technology created for one purpose can be terrifyingly simple to redirect toward another. The catastrophic loss of this advanced engineering knowledge, while a tragedy for human progress, might have carried a grim silver lining. It potentially prevented these sophisticated principles from being refined and scaled for warfare, sparing the ancient world from conflicts even more devastating than those already recorded. The silence that followed the great library's burning was also perhaps a precarious peace. This reflection forces a difficult question upon us, one that the corroded gears of the Antikythera Mechanism seem to silently ask across the millennia. With great technological mastery comes an even greater responsibility, a truth as relevant to the engineers of today as it was to those of the distant past. For all our advanced scans and digital reconstructions, the silent gears of the Antikythera Mechanism guard their deepest secrets. We have one, but was it truly alone? The Roman ship carrying it was likely bound for a wealthy patron, part of a luxury trade in knowledge and marvels. Its solitary survival from the deep suggests such devices were incredibly rare, yet its very existence implies a workshop, a tradition, a lineage of craftsmanship. How many other cosmic calculators sailed on other ships, only to be lost forever in storms or broken up for their valuable bronze? The specific inspiration for its brilliant gearwork remains another puzzle. Did a single genius mathematician calculate those ratios from first principles, or were they the refined product of generations of Babylonian sky watchers, their centuries of observational data finally encoded into metal? The machine itself feels like the final, polished chapter of a very long story, most of which is missing, and who possessed the knowledge to keep such a delicate instrument running. The skills to cast, fit, and calibrate these gears were not common. Were there secretive guilds of master mechanics, passing their esoteric knowledge from father to son, their workshops hidden away in the back streets of great cities like Alexandria or Rhodes? If so, their names and their techniques have vanished almost without a trace. Every answer we uncover seems to generate two new, more intriguing questions. These lingering enigmas are not failures of research, but the very lifeblood of this field. They are open invitations, a silent challenge to archaeologists and engineers of the future. The next great discovery might be waiting in an unexcavated shipwreck, or hidden in plain sight within a misunderstood passage of an ancient text. It is a reminder that the ancient world still has the power to surprise us, and that the next fragment we find could, once again, shatter the timeline we thought we knew. Our journey through these ancient workshops and cosmic calculators reveals a story far richer than primitive struggle. We have witnessed brilliant flashes of innovation that prefigured our modern world, from the celestial computer of Antikythera to the steam experiments of Heron. These were not anomalies, they were demonstrations of an ageless human capacity for engineering, a timeless spark of genius that ignites when conditions are right. The true lesson is not found in the gears themselves, but in the delicate ecosystem that allowed them to turn. Progress is not a guaranteed upward march. It is a fragile bloom that requires stability, deep curiosity, generous patronage, and the free flow of ideas across borders. The thousand-year silence that followed these marvels is a stark warning, a testament to the terrifying fragility of knowledge itself. When that ecosystem shattered, the machines fell silent, their purpose forgotten. Let these recovered wonders inspire in us more than just awe. Let them spark a renewed commitment to nurturing our own technological heritage, to preserving the networks of knowledge that allow us to build upon the past rather than endlessly rediscover it. The silent gears from a shipwreck challenge us to be better custodians of our own brilliance. If this exploration of lost genius resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe for more journeys into history's greatest mysteries. I would love to hear your thoughts on these incredible machines in the comments below.